Have you ever wondered, what is it with yesteryear cartoons that not only garnered a huge fan following, but also had the entire lot hooked in and hungrily waiting for the next episode? Do you think it had something to do with the characters on display, the fact that every character had their own personality, or the vibrant animation that was featured at the backdrop of some very progressive stories? Well, given that most of us here at Marvelous Videos belong to the era of the older generation of cartoons, we think we can pretty much vouch for everyone when we say that modern cartoons have truly lost the meaning of what a cartoon is in the first place. In today's video, we are going to try to find out the reason why cartoons are getting worse day by day. We suggest that you stay tuned till the end of this video because it's going to be an interesting one. Well, without further ado, let's dive right into the video then. But before we get into our explanation, we do have a very small request. If you enjoy our content, then please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Now, let's begin. Back in the day, ask yourself this: what do you recall as one of your best childhood memories? Ours is definitely switching on the television to watch our favorite cartoons as a kid. So, the core thing with cartoons back then was that they weren't just considered as shows. They were so much more than that. Cartoons were a source of entertainment that allowed one to forget all of their problems in the real world. In fact, if we may add, cartoons were a whole new world which had us completely immersed in their colorful, imaginative realm. Also, the manner in which these cartoons would probe deeper into specific themes and topics literally opened eyes to perspectives that one would have never known otherwise. So whether it was learning the significance of making friends who would always stick with you, or say understanding how to deal with sacrifices and even the pressure of responsibility, there was always a cartoon ready not only to inspire, but also entertain one. Remember how we had incredible shows like Scooby-Doo, Johnny Quest, The Addams Family, Dexter's Laboratory, The Mask, The Flintstones, and Popeye the Sailor, amongst a horde of other nostalgic cartoons? They surely must have had some USP that makes them still talked about to this very day. With The Flintstones, we're basically looking at the adventures of two modern-day Stone Age families. Scooby-Doo is about a group of teenage friends and their Great Danes solving mysteries together. Dexter's Laboratory revolves around a kid genius with a secret laboratory that only his sister knew about. Truth be told, none of the cartoons mentioned had heartwarming stories to tell. They all had rather simple narratives with humor, themes, and adventures to share. But what worked wonders in their favor is that these cartoons were made for everyone, and that was their unique selling point. They respected their audience, and while it is true that the cartoons were stories for children, they never talked down to them. In fact, they raised the very standard of children's entertainment, leaving the children with all kinds of questions. Cartoons back then were a delight because the people behind them really cared about making good television. Major credits to channels such as Cartoon Network, Disney, and Nickelodeon, who not only operated at full capacity and did their very best in providing quality, creative, and entertaining options literally every day, but also ensured that we as kids were majorly into their treasure trove. Well, fast forward a decade or two, and that reality will start to feel like a distant memory from another time. Also, with Disney realizing that streaming is the future of the entertainment industry, like it or not, and eventually becoming Disney Plus in the process, it did take away the whole concept and add to this the excitement of waiting for your favorite show to play at a specific time. What has led to developing the narrative? Modern cartoons are worse. Well, in case you didn't know this, there is a narrative which has become extremely popular these days. Yes, we are stressing on modern cartoons are worse, and we'd like to cite out the reasons behind this. First things first, it has got to do a bit with nostalgia. You know, that sentimental longing of a former thing, place, or time. You can call this the charm of nostalgia, but this points one to a direction where most people usually look at cartoons from their childhood and regard them as the best shows that they have ever seen. And if you are someone who has been watching cartoons from a very young age, you are bound to build some sort of a connection with them, and it will hit you the most when these cartoons end, because it will leave you with this intense craving for them. Next comes the whole process of flanderization. This is when the writer gets lazy, runs out of ideas for the character, and makes a total mess in the process. Club this with the new idea of reusing old content, and you will see the blunder yourself. Like it or not, but there is this constant making of classic beloved shows instead of focusing on original ideas that, to be honest, most people don't really get. What exactly can one get by taking a kids show and then making it even more kid-like? Those of you who have seen the reboots of Scooby-Doo and the Powerpuff Girls will get a fair idea of what we're talking about here. The idea today is to get new shows in order to replace the ones that had so much value in them in the first place. Now, if we compare the Powerpuff Girls reboot with the original, fans of the beloved 90s cartoon are bound to ask what really happened to the no-nonsense kindergarten-age girls who would always be there to save the city of Townsville from all the bad guys. The reboot has Blossom smoking, Buttercup developing an addiction to steroids, and Bubbles out of control being a complete brat, while the original cartoon always gave one that nostalgic feeling of childhood. We're afraid we can't say the same thing about the reboot. You see, the major issue with cartoons these days is that they're not made by people anymore. They're made by big firms who believe in coming up with merchandise first and then maybe think a bit about the shows. Of course, they don't care how a character acts or what message a character conveys. If it's colorful and loud, it will do the trick for them. Cartoons today are very different from what they were even a few years ago. With every day, there's a new technique and method coming up to replace the ones that are mostly seen as outdated. Tropes that were fresh and original once will need an update, and this is where nostalgia hits us again because it somehow makes us resent the cartoons, pushing us to the extent of labeling them as bad and boring. Why are cartoons so terrible these days? We can go on and on with this, but here we'd like to particularly point out a few things. We'd like to begin with the unlikable characters on display. The thing with the show writers these days is that they attempt to put themselves so much into the characters that they tend to forget that they're creating characters primarily for their target audience and not for themselves. In some cases, the writers even tend to forget who their target audience is, and that adds up to the current mumbo-jumbo. Let's take the case of the show titled Uncle Grandpa here. The entire show did not make sense to a lot of people, and to be fair, if one doesn't know what exactly is taking place in a show, how can one possibly even like it? Uncle Grandpa attempted to capture the randomness absurdity of earlier shows such as Adventure Time, and even Regular Show for that matter, but failed to do so miserably because the latter shows mentioned were still grounded in reality, but Uncle Grandpa just wasn't. Next comes the fact that animators these days just want to get paid, and they also have insane deadlines to meet. Here, we'd like to stress on the malpractice of overburdening animators with piles of work that need to be finished within a stipulated time. The thing with cartoons is that they consume a lot of time and energy, especially their development from the initial concept stage to the final color grading and animation. Add to this, story pitches made into fully developed episodes. So while there is a high demand for finished cartoons, animators are mostly seen cutting corners to meet their deadlines. This naturally impacts the animation, and the end result happens to be cheap-looking stuff with bad character designs. Let's talk about another cartoon here titled Apple and Onion. This one, featuring an anthropomorphic apple and spring onion, tried so hard to fill boots that it knew it just could not, but it kept trying and trying, generating a total of 76 episodes at the end of the day. Apple and Onion featured vomit-inducing animation with some of the worst and most baffling characters to have ever been seen on any show. For that matter, don't even get us started on the plots. They simply make no sense, but just to give you an idea, let's actually talk about one. So, in one of the stories, we find Apple and Onion encountering a cat who ends up liking Apple more. This makes Onion mad with jealousy and he attempts to kill it. Of course, the cat doesn't die, but we also don't see the cat again. And that is the end of the story. We'll leave you for a while to process things and this ludicrous plotline here on your own. Besides the reasons we have cited, there is also a severe lack of originality and effort, the unnecessary reliance on gross-out gags, making bad spin-off shows of some great cartoons, and giving them the weakest of plot lines that have not only made cartoons terrible, but also quite boring these days. And if all of these things aren't enough, there's also an abundance of toilet humor, which is basically making fart jokes. May we add here that toilet humor isn't always funny? Last but not least, cartoons are getting worse day by day because they only cater to children, keeping the profits in mind. No wonder the majority of the shows have transitioned from deep story-driven narratives to colorful random escapades. You do realize that having a thriving show depends on how much the show can sell outside of the cartoon itself, and by this, we are strictly stressing on merchandises like toys, action figures, clothes, and also movies to an extent. It's primarily the children who are essentially the jackpot of animation. Getting more children to gravitate towards your show means that you have a better chance of getting your show renewed. The shows don't have to be detailed. They just have to be bright, colorful, and random. Things that will usually lure children to the show. We may sound pretty mean right now, but it is the bitter truth, and there is no denying this. Cartoons today have become a profit-centered industry, primarily targeting the kids. Marvelous verdict. With this, we finally come to the end of our video here. So what do you think has gone wrong with the cartoons these days? We would love to know your thoughts in the comments section down below. Also, do let us know what used to be your favorite cartoon as a child. And if you're still into cartoons, which is your favorite place to watch them these days? Now, if you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Please do leave a thumbs up and stay tuned with us as we promise to come back with more exciting content. Till then, goodbye, and thanks for watching. Have a nice one.